it's definitely like a detective kind of job,
Yeah.
where we're constantly researching and constantly, like, also, if you know the supervisor that's working on it, you can kind of gauge their tastes, and also the directors. If you start to get their tastes, like Tarantino, you're going to know kind of what vibe they're going to go with their supervisor that they always use. So some of them is a bit easier than others, but
and I think just keeping these people up to date too with
Yeah.
what we have in our catalog, what we feel is placeable, and like what Amy said, like music that they've used before, or that a certain supervisor or a certain editor or whoever might like a certain style of music. Then if something like that comes across your desk, then you should definitely send it along. So I think it's just about maintaining all those relationships, and then just researching and just trying to see what the best possible fit would be for a particular song.
Hearing rights, can you go further into depth about what that entails? So if someone comes back to you and says, yes, I want to use this song for my project, what do you then need to do in order to get that song?
Well, for Cadence, we're working with the master recording. So we will, if it's a direct signing to us, then we've given an advance for the exclusive rights to own that master recording or license that master recording for any given amount of time. So for us, we're controlling the rights for it, so we can just go back to the artist and then let them know about a potential placement that we have for them, and then just go about executing the license on that side. And that's that's the master license, and you can speak to the.
Yeah, so even though I'm the head of publishing and licensing, like that's my full-time gig, I also do all the licensing for the label side. So I clear both sides. I clear the master and the publishing, so the sync rights. And it's pretty much like what yours is too. We just go to the management and say, hey, is this going to be okay? And then we go, if there's other publishers, like on the Broken Social Scene stuff, there's other publishers involved in some of the tracks, so I have to go to those publishers and say, here are the terms, like, are you going to be okay with this? We're okay with this. But I just want to make sure that Brendan's cool or Feist is cool or whatever.
Yeah.
So you just have to check with everybody, make sure everything is cool, and then go back and do your quote. And when you're looking at terms, when we're talking about terms, we're saying like how long you need the song for. For TV, it's usually perpetuity, so that means forever and ever. What territories you need. Usually for television, it's the world. Ads is different. You're going to break it out by territory usually, and the terms usually, it can range from 13 weeks to a year. It's never perpetuity.
In ads now, that'd be a tricky one.
Yeah. So, and then, territory be U.S. or Canada or Sweden or whatever, and then you can also, with ads, you can get exclusivities they're going to ask for. So if you get a car ad or a drink ad or something, it'll say exclusive to automobiles. So that means you can't license that song for any other car ads. So that's the kind of stuff that you negotiate. Like, and in television, we were talking about this today, which we've noticed it's been starting to creep into some deal memos. The media terms. So we normally grant like all media excluding theatrical and out of context trailers or promos. And what that means, well, you had the best explanation for the out of context, about how it was like you just had a playlist for ad agencies to pluck from.
Totally, yeah. And that's, that it should be, it shouldn't, that's just, we should be able to go back and renegotiate that,
Yeah,
right? Like it's you're basically creating a commercial. That's a little bit of a back way of going about it, which is something that we try to avoid. So we always try to make sure that we have the best interest involved for both the label, the publisher, and the artist, everybody involved, management, because ultimately we want everyone to be happy with the placement that they get. We want our client to come back to us as well. But there are certain instances where you do have to push back a little bit and just say, like, just because there's money on the table doesn't always necessarily mean that it's going to be available for use. So it's just, like Amy was saying, going through, making sure that all the rights are just in line and fair for basically what they're getting.
And I mean, to speak more on the trailers thing, you guys know what trailers are. In the U.S., Canada's very different. They actually don't have trailer companies here. The networks do it all in-house for their promos, for their television shows. But in the U.S., trailers are a huge business. There are tons of trailer companies everywhere that's all they do. They get hired to do trailers, and they have editors, and they have these music teams that come in, and they get the music, they get the songs, they edit it up and trailerize it even. They get composers to help trailerize these songs to make them work for these trailers, and it's a lot of money. So when you see on a film deal memo, if you see out of context trailers, you scratch that out immediately, and you write you scratch out all trailers, actually. For a film, scratch out all trailers. For TV shows, in context trailers, okay. But any trailers, you want to make sure that that's a separate license. So I've been seeing that creep up. So I was like, when I do these things, I have to make sure to tell people, if you're a songwriter and you got a film, look for those little tricks, because they'll try and sneak them in, because then they're saving themselves $50,000.
And then in context versus out of context, just in case like you might not be aware, is in context are basically taking the scene with the song in it and the way it's used in the show, and then putting that in a trailer, basically a commercial for the show. Out of context is they're taking that song out and using it in a totally different way. So basically using it as another vehicle to promote the show, which is not, it's obviously they're taking liberties on the track that they necessarily shouldn't be taking. So it's part of our job to try and make sure that those liberties don't get taken with the artist.
So it sounds like a lot of work, what you do.
Yeah, it's a bit much.
Okay. So if an artist isn't working with a publisher or sync licenser, is it possible for them to pitch their own music independently? And have you ever heard of this working?
Yeah, I mean, anything's possible, right?
Yeah.
Like obviously you could. The benefit of working with a sync agent or a publisher is that these people have established the relationship with the music supervisor or whoever already, and have been working at it for numerous years to build this rapport with these people. Artists too, you can send your music along, but like I would always advise to do it smartly. Just don't submit it to everything. Like I was using the example today in a few of the one-on-ones. Like if you're in a jazz band and there's a heavy metal documentary going on, don't go pitching your jazz music to the heavy metal documentary, because it's just not going to work. You're going to waste this person's time. They're not going to open your email, and now you've just sort of blown a possible good connection for when this person was working on a good jazz doc, right? So I think it's useful and it's helpful finding a sync agent that can really believe in your music, that wants to pitch you and wants to have success for you, and is basically pitching your music at the right time with people that they're already familiar with and have been doing business with. So yeah, bands can always do it. It's just you'll probably have a wider reach and a wider net than doing it on your own, than if you did go with a sync agent.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like we're specialists. We've devoted our careers to doing this. We do it every day, all day, and half the night usually. And we travel and we take these people out. And they turn into your friends, and they turn into your family. And so they trust us. The market is very saturated. There's a lot of pitch companies. There's a lot of people that want to get their music into television, film, video games, all that stuff. So these poor supervisors are inundated with emails. Like I think they get 500 or 600 probably emails a day with links. How do you even go through that? Well, you go through and you go, okay, I know this company, I know this company, I know this company. I trust their taste in music. They never send me like 500 songs. They send me like good stuff, and they're easy to work with. So I'm gonna take these and I'm gonna listen to them. Yeah. So it's as an artist pitching your own stuff, it's really tough. So I mean, you can do it, and you can do it because you meet people at these things, and they'll say, "Send me your music," and they'll take notice of you. But that's like 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. I mean, I think my contact list in the U.S. alone is like 350 or 400 music supervisors, and I have to send pitches to those, and I send them individually to each music supervisor. It takes me like 3 days to do a playlist, but it's like But I know their kids' names, and I hang out with them when I go to LA and stuff like that. Like we're actually family, so it's a little different, and it's hard to do that when you're still trying to do your craft, right? So leave it to us.
So it is important to, I think nowadays especially, to really try to get a sync agent or a publisher on board. How easy is it to get that kind of representation? And for each of you, how established does the artist need to be, and what relationship between, like, what would that relationship look like between you and the artist? Like, how do you find them? How do you obtain them? What kind of makes you want to work with their music?
Well, obviously the song, and like a good song is always going to catch somebody and grab somebody. Good production is always going to catch somebody and grab somebody. Great lyrics. I'm always, I for sync licensing and for placements, positive lyrics seem to work better than negative lyrics, but like really depends on the context of the scene. But if there's somebody that, if there's a song that I hear and I really like it, then Cadence does do sync representation deals only. If you're not in our Fontana North system, or if you're not a direct signing to any of our labels, we don't want to let a good song go. And if we see that there's an opportunity for us to be able to pitch it somewhere that it has a potential to land, then we'll negotiate a deal with the artist or your manager or whoever it may be, and get into the business of representing you guys for pitches, basically. And if a placement is brought about and there is a negotiation to be had, then we can do that on your behalf, and just work to kind of get that headache of the paperwork out of the way and off your plate.
I mean, we don't do sync only deals, we do admin deals, but it's the same kind of thing. Your music just has to move me, and I have to feel like I can do something with it. And it's not just about my taste. It's because my taste actually doesn't come into it most of the time. It's what I need and what holes I have in the catalog that, a supervisor is sending me a bunch of briefs and I don't have anything for it. Well, that's a red flag to me. That's like, okay, I need this style of music or the genre because I keep coming up empty-handed. So it's that kind of thing, and then I focus and try to look for that. But usually, I find music everywhere, like Spotify, my Spotify playlist for sure, but friends, other music supervisors, lawyers, managers, labels. Like it's really because of all the contacts that I've built up over the last 12 years that, people just send bands to me that they like, and they're like, I think this is in your wheelhouse, I think you really dig it, and you should meet this person. So I don't know, does that answer the question?
So can artists send you, like, you're open to hearing what they have? And
absolutely, yeah. I always encourage, especially I love just even new Canadian talent too is always beneficial to hear. And I love being able to work Canadian talent outside of Canada. I think it's a total win if you can get a sync for a Canadian band outside of Canada. It's just like, especially an independent one that is just even up and coming, or hasn't even had like a ton of shows under their belt and may have just recorded this really cool song. I'm a big believer in pushing Canadian music for sure. So always very open to listening to new up and coming Canadian acts.
So would you license like just one song if a band was like, this is our single and we think it's amazing, you loved it?
Yeah, I've done it before, sure, yeah.
Okay, interesting. So again, I know we always talk about team, and artists are always hearing like, oh, I hear from their manager, or from their agent, or from their lawyer. If an artist doesn't have those people on their team, it's not I want to talk a little bit maybe about a publishing deal as well, because I know that people are interested in the difference between a label deal or a publishing deal. And if you can speak a little bit on that, and also if you can each talk about maybe what, I know it's harder for artists without a team, but are you interested in artists that don't have one and simply have good music, and the best way to approach you with that?
Okay.
I know it's a lot of things.
I mean, I can give a little example here. For a guy that I've been working with for, I don't know, 6-7 years. He works in an ad agency. I mean, last year I hung out with him in Chicago, and, you know, we just got to talking, and he played me a bit of the music that he has in his band, that his band just released, and I just signed him to Arts and Crafts like 3 weeks ago, you know? And I work with him a lot on ads. Like, I pitched to him, and he just decided one day, because, you know, we had a few glasses of wine, and he was like, do you want to hear this? I was like, okay. And it's like this like grunge, garagey, like punk, awesome, gritty shit. I love it. And you know, is that kind of stuff? Is that kind of like weird stuff that you're not expecting that is always the best for signings? And he didn't have a team. They still don't have a team. They have no label. They have no manager. They all have day jobs. They just needed representation. Last time I was in Chicago, I don't know, 5 months ago is when we started the discussion. We were having dinner, and he was like, so were you serious about liking the band? Because I you do, so can you maybe work with us? Would you want to? So it was like, you know, that's how it happens. You're here, you're talking to me and Rich, and we'll listen to your music, of course. I think most of you have my email address. If you don't, you can get it from me after. And I'll listen, and if it fits, then we'd totally work with you, because it's not as important to me that you're touring and you're on the radio and all that stuff. I mean, that stuff is all awesome, and I would love that stuff too, but it's not the be-all, end-all, because if I can work with it and I can get placements, then that's worth it to me.
Mm-hmm.
So
worth it to you and worth it for the band.
Yeah, like
obviously,
yeah.
And then your question was about a label too. What a label could
Yeah, like I don't know. I'm not sure if everyone here understands the difference between a label deal and a publishing deal, or.
Well, the pub deal, you're signing over like your composition rights, and there's.
It's more developing a songwriter.
Yeah.
You as a songwriter, not so much as an artist. So it's a long game. So it's like, I want you to be still writing songs when you're 60 with people, you know.
And a label, I mean, if you have a record recorded, well, there's multiple different ways you can go about it, but a label could license your record for, say, a period of 5 years, for example, and what they would have, they could do it for the world, they could license for a territory, but basically they will be the amplifier for your band and for what you're doing with your social media work. They'll help get that word out there. They'll be able to hook you up with a PR person to give you, obviously more exposure and marketing. They could potentially offer or get you connections for tour support and playing bigger shows, playing with bigger bands. They could potentially get you in a network with a manager if you don't already have one, or if you just kind of have like a temp one, sort of like a one that's just sort of filling in until you get an actual working manager who can do something for you. They'll also be promoting your music for radio play, trying to get you on Spotify playlists, different Spotify playlists, so they'll be in communication with the team. There's lots of different options. There's lots of good things that can come from both sides.
Yeah, I mean, I think the simplest way to think of it too is label is mostly artist development, and publishing is mostly songwriter development. But there's crossover on both sides. Like, I do a lot of artist development too, and I'm also in all the marketing meetings because I'm lucky to be in a company where there's a management company, there's a label, and then also we have an agency that's on the other side of our office. So I'm hearing like all aspects of the business around me every day. So that's really cool.
And I mean, ultimately, look at us. We're at two very different sides of music. I'm representing Master. She's with publishing, and we end up pitching to the same people, essentially doing the same thing. It's like there's crossover for sure. But that was a really nice way of putting it. Song development as opposed to artist development. I think that's the basic and most simplest way to put it.
I like that. Thank you. That's awesome. Is there like a cap amount of artists that you would take on, or do you just
I think that's a very subjective question, depending on the person who's controlling the catalog. If it starts getting too big where you can't manage it, then it's not doing anyone any services or any favors by having that, an X amount of tracks that is impossible to go through. Quality is always going to be more than quantity and worth more. For me, if I wouldn't cap it and then not sign a good song or not consider representing a good song just because I have a cap of 2,000 songs. I mean, that's not what it is, but that's just an example. I think good music would always trump that. For me, short answer, no. Yeah.
There's a longish, short.
There was a long answer and then a short answer.
I'm just wondering, like, just in this position, because there's so many times that artists pitch their music to, again, like labels or managers, and on those sides, they're like, we can't. Like, we love your music, but I can't manage you because my roster's full.
And
or
that's
whatever.
fair.
That's what he's talking about, though, that you get to a point where you're overwhelmed. And,
Yeah.
I mean, like on my side, we might do, I don't do a cap like that. However, for just say a co-pub relationship, I would be much more selective. Mm-hmm. So with a co-pub relationship, we're investing. There's usually an advance attached. And we're actually partnering with the artist on their career as an artist songwriter. So we're doing showcasing, writing trips, song camps, like writing camps, all that kind of stuff. It's just way more time investment and financial investment. An admin deal, you're looking at more on pitching, collecting, making sure that all of your copyrights are registered around the world and that everything's taken care of at all the PROs and all that stuff, but I'm not really doing any of the other things because that stuff you have to be really careful because it can take up a lot of time. Yeah. Like one big writing trip where just say I'm sending an artist to Europe for a month, that'll take me 2 to 3 months to plan. And on top of all the other stuff that I have, it's really difficult to do. So you have to be very cautious in that sense. Mm-hmm. But from an admin point of view, I can pick up more stuff. So, but I mean, these deals take a long time to actually make happen. It's not like it's like, oh yeah, I like your stuff. Okay, sign. It's like it takes a while because people want to make sure that they're in the right relationship.
Can you explain that process of teaming up with a songwriter that you send on these trips and kind of how a songwriter would get involved in something like that or take those steps? Yeah,
it's usually a songwriter that we really, really believe in, and we think that the partnership is going to be advantageous to both of us. They really want to be a songwriter because there's a lot of bands out there that don't want to co-write with other people. They might try it, but it's not a super big passion of theirs. Sure, they might go, yeah, writing trip would be cool. Of course, like a trip to Nashville would be cool, right? Like, so, but it's like, how serious do you want to do this? And we also kind of gauge their long-term goals. Are they going to be touring for the next, 4 years or 3 years, and they're not going to have time to co-write? I mean, there's a bunch of aspects too. Some writers don't want to do a co-pub deal because you're giving up part of your publishing, so they don't want to. So that's another thing that we discuss as to what's better suited for that artist and that partnership. So there's a lot of variables. It's not the funny thing is about publishing and with label too, there was no one size fits all. There is none. I mean, you can write in, I expect to have a unicorn in my backyard every day at 6 p.m. You can write that in a contract. It doesn't mean you're going to get it, but that's like, these are the kind of things that you can do. Maybe not a unicorn, but you know what I mean. Like you can ask for the world for a publishing deal, and some people you might get it or you might not, but there's no standard, So to answer that question, it's super tough, right? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think that covers a lot.
I'm going to open the floor to questions in a little bit as well, so write them down if you think you're going to forget after. But I'm wondering if you've noticed any trends in like where there's a gap, like where music supervisors are asking for a specific either genre of music or theme of music or mood of the music that you feel that there might not be enough of?
Well, I think it's you're always going to get asked for various different types. I don't think it's ever going to be like more one side to the other. If there's anything, and if it's ever skewed in one direction, I think very soft singer-songwriter acoustic music does really well in sync. Piano singer-songwriter music does really well in sync too. And just making sure like the lyrics aren't too dark, I feel it works in sync. Just going like too negative just kind of seems to kill it. It's great on record, and there's always a place for that. And I think in sync it just doesn't work sometimes. Sometimes.
I mean, lyrics are so important, and it's funny. There's a lot of people in the music industry that disagree with me wholeheartedly. They all, oh no, melody is the most important thing. But from a sync standpoint, you know what kills the song for pitching? It's always the lyric. Every single time. When I go to pitch, I'm like, damn it, the sound is perfect. Everything's perfect. The instrumentation's perfect. The production's beautiful. The lyrics, I can't do anything with this.
Yeah, like there's an example. Like back when I had worked on an ad before, and it was an ad for Bell, and we had a song up that was perfect to send to the agency. It was just working so well, but there was a swear word in the chorus, and we couldn't get an instrumental. And it just totally killed it. And it was like a
bounce your instrumentals, always.
80K sync just out the window. And if the band just would have had a different approach to their lyric, it would have gone. And it was just so unfortunate too, because the band was just on the cusp of getting signed. It would have been a great win for our team, and it just didn't work. It was like.
Now, this being said, we don't want you to sacrifice the integrity of your art either.
Definitely.
So I do not want anyone writing for sync. There was a moment there. What was this? This was like 4 or 5 years ago, and I went out to North by Northeast, and I was with my husband. I brought him out because he always thought, he's like, you get to go do all these cool things. And I'm like, no, you come and see. You're just watching 5 million bands for 3 days. Tired as shit and your feet hurt. Anyways. So we're behind the last night, he was exhausted, and he was like, can we go? I'm like, no, we have to watch one more band, then we can go. It's like 2 in the morning or something. And he's like, I swear to God, every band is sounding the same. Maybe it's because I'm so tired. And I'm like, no, you're right. Every band sounds the same. They all have hand claps. Mm-hmm. They all have this breathy girl, like, sing, and they have synths, and, like, I don't know. Yeah. There was a moment where at North by, every single band sounded the same. And they were all writing for sync.
Yeah,
and we all went, no.
Yeah, I don't think you should write for sync. Like, your artistic integrity should totally be number one. I think the moral of that story is just to have instrumentals available. Because if we had an instrumental, we totally could have got around it, and it would have been fine. They didn't think to have it in the recording when they were doing it at first. And it was just, for whatever reason, the timeline was too tight, and they just couldn't get it in time to have a properly mixed and mastered instrumental version to be able to send along. And it just, like I said, it killed it.
And there's some music supervisors that won't take a pitch without instrumentals. Yeah. So now you must do it. Like I honestly am kind of getting to the point where my policy is, when I'm signing a band, if you don't have instrumentals, then we are not signing you. Yeah. So go back and re-record them or whatever, because I can't use your songs.
Yeah, they're important, and in television too, because you got to, there's always a lot of dialogue, so your lyrics and then the dialogue on screen often conflicts. Mm-hmm. So they help, especially I'm an audio editor too, and I'm putting everything together, so it definitely helps. And it's really really good to see when bands send you full mixes and instrumentals, because that you just have so many more options to be able to pitch to your client. And it just gives your track a better chance of winning a pitch.
That's very good advice. Yeah. Can you share any examples of success stories from emerging artists that you've started working with, and any placements that if you're allowed to, any placements that you can share, and how that affected their career positively?
You have a really good one.
Well,
this is better than mine.
I've used this. Well, I may have. If any, I don't know. I've used this one before, but there was an artist originally in the Arkells, and he had He got disenchanted with touring and decided he wanted to become a lawyer. So he left the band, went to law school, and he's now an entertainment lawyer in Toronto, working with bands. But during this process, he was recording these bedroom recordings that were really raw and rough, but sounded just really, really like they just had a tone to them that were really warm. And he had sent them to me, and we had landed one of them in a Canadian Tire Christmas commercial, and this was maybe about 5 years ago. And the following Christmas, the agency came back, and they really loved what Dan had did and had asked if there was another round of music that we can get from him. We actually got another song from him in another Canadian Tire commercial, so he got 2 for Christmas. The following Christmas came around, and they went back to the original one, and now they've started licensing it again and kind of started making it like the Canadian Tire Christmas song, which was really cool. And the initial time when we had licensed like free download in Canada, and he got a ton of downloads out of that, a ton of new fans. Yeah, and then I just even at the last CMW thing that we did, I saw his manager, and they were like, "Rich, they called again. They're coming back." And I was like, "Oh, that's so cool," because it's been going on for so long now. So yeah, it was a good one to see Dan get that one. I like that one a lot.
I had one for You Say Party years ago, a Nissan ad in the U.S., and I think it renewed 3 times, and for a year license, and it funded their last album. So, they were stoked. So, I mean, it's always great when something like that happens. It doesn't happen a lot. It does not happen a lot. So when it does, you're, over the moon because it's funding their life, So.
Yeah.
Awesome. I just have a couple more questions. I just want to talk about, just because we've mentioned music supervisors, and I don't know if everyone here knows what that is. And also, you have a lot of relationships with music supervisors, but I know that that's sort of not, you can pitch it to a music supervisor who really likes it, but that's not the end of the road. Could you explain how this process works in actually getting a song on?
This is my favorite
something?
conversation. I think you and I have probably ranted about this.
Yeah.
So, phone in my, anyways. This is an ongoing issue since I started pitching. When you start a job like this, it's high pressure and everyone's expecting results because it's a results gig. So you're pitching, and you're getting nothing back. You get no feedback, especially when you're starting out. You get nothing. Like, they don't even say thanks. They don't have time. They don't know you, so they don't have to. But it's disheartening for someone who's like sending out 500 million emails a week. So your clients, the bands, start getting frustrated. The management start getting on you. Where are the syncs? Where are the syncs? Where are the syncs? And, you think, oh my God, it's all my fault. It's all my fault. And then as I grew up in the business and got doing this for longer and longer and longer and got really used to hearing no, just like I'm sure you guys are used to hearing, like we all are in this business. I started, as you get closer with your friends that work in the other side, you get to actually see through the curtain a little bit, and you hear their frustrations and what they're dealing with every day, and it's as bad as what we're all dealing with. So I'm pitching to a music supervisor who's my bud, who like our kids have played together, okay? And they're like, this is like the best song ever, and like I would love to get this placement for you. I'm just gonna get this to the director. It's gonna be fine. He takes it to the director, and the director's like, who's this? What's this band? I want Lady Gaga. What the hell are you giving me this for? Like, well, your budget is this, not Lady Gaga. So this is what we're gonna do. No, I don't think this is gonna work. And then I go, hey, like, Coffee Dude, what do you think of this song? It's a piece of shit, huh? They're like, yeah, this sucks. It's terrible. Okay, I'm going to ask my daughter tonight, see what she thinks. Like, this is the kind of stuff that we're dealing with. Not all the time, but it does happen. Like, and then sometimes you have the actors on the shows And they'll come in and they'll go, no, you're going to put my friend's, boyfriend's, sister's, brother's, cousin's band in here because I owe him a favor.
That happens a lot.
Jesus. Like, it's really, there's a lot of hoops. We're only the first. Like, we are actually the first door. And then there's a smaller. It's super frustrating. And you know what? Sometimes, you know who it is that usually lands it? You're going to agree with me here, I think. I hope. Editors.
Yeah.
If you can get them to temp in a song into their show, usually that's what lands. So you try to get the editors, but these guys hide. You can't find them. They don't come to shows. They don't go to anything. They don't go to mixers. They just don't. Yeah. So it's like you have to get really good with the supervisors. Then the supervisors will just sneak them into the editors, because then there's like battles sometimes between editors and supervisors.
Yeah.
Right?
I totally agree with that. And the editors are always going to try. The editors want to also, show the client that they have strong musical taste, that they can find bands that are easily to clear. So they're going to kind of, I'm the rock star editor, I'm the super editor, I can do all of it, and they're going to cut to the commercial too. And good on them, because if they're there and they're getting the tracks, I mean, if the tracks are getting in as they should. But to Amy's point, I mean, there is definitely a chain of command that's happening, like where it goes to the band, to the sync pitch, to the sync agent, to the music supervisor, to the director. And then there's many different people that have to get on board after that to kind of, go over it and say, like, is this working? Like, they sit with it. They try options. It's definitely a process. It's not just like, boom, it's in the show. If it doesn't work with the scene, it's not going to work with the scene. And there's multiple people that have an influence over that. And if, it could sometimes be like a house of cards. If some person says that's bringing the coffee says, yeah, that sucks, then they're going to look over their shoulder and go, oh, maybe he's right. And then start second guessing themselves, and then we got to find another track.
Well, and in film too, it's interesting. I try really hard to, get inside information, be like, how far along are you in post right now? Oh, we're about, I'd say 6 months out. Okay. I'm going to set an alarm for 4 months from now. Yeah. And I'll pitch to scenes like 4 months later. I'll say, well, just remember that we have these songs, but don't put them in yet. Because sometimes what happens is the song goes in, like I've had this happen where a song went in like really early in post, and by the end, everyone's sick of the song. So they're like, I hate this song, take it out. And you're like, what? Because you were telling the artist and the manager, and everyone's all excited, and then it's out. Yeah. So it's like, it's all timing and politics. It's so complicated. There's so many moving parts. So now I've learned to manage expectations with managers and labels, and I go right off the bat, I'm not guaranteeing any syncs, not a one, because you know what? You never know. Well, and I'm going to work hard, but I can't guarantee it.
There's instances too, especially in advertising, and it's happened quite a bit, where you get a sync, the song is placed, and then the agency comes back and says, great, we're going to hold off though because we want to put the commercial in testing. So they go through, and then they'll go over everything from the actors and the music to the editing to everything. And if it doesn't test well, then they don't license it, and it doesn't get put on air. And the spot just goes away. They reshoot it. So yeah, there's definitely, until that ink is on that paper, it's.
Well, and even with TV, sometimes you got to wait until like the day of the airing. Like you don't even know. I've watched. We got everyone excited about this show. This was banned last year, and he got all his buddies to watch, like tune in. It was like an MTV thing, and it got dropped last minute. His scene got dropped. Oh, no. So everyone's watching it, and then my phone just blew up. Where's my scene? What the hell's going on? What did you do? I'm like, I didn't do anything. I don't work for MTV. What are you talking about? So like the next day, I had to make all these phone calls and be like, what the hell happened? And the supervisor's like, oh, I was supposed to email you about that. I'm like, oh. Oh, okay, thanks. So it's like, it's just the way it is. Like, TV moves quick, and film moves slow. So does video games, but...
Yeah, they move slow. Ads move quick.
Ads move quick.
But yeah, it's just all a part of what you have to deal with.
Yeah. Awesome. Does anyone have questions for them that I haven't... Yeah. I'm going to start with Holly at the back so I don't forget.
Sure. Hi.
The entire song without vocals. Yeah.
Yeah, there's also, you could send vocalese versions too, so if you have like some nice melodies or harmonies going on that aren't lyrics, they're just like oohs and ahs and stuff like that, you can leave those in. TV mixes is
I would
great.
do two though, do full instrumental and do one with the vocalese as well.
Do both.
Yeah.
If you can have your stems available too, that helps. Stems meaning like each track that you've recorded, that you have it on a separate track. So if an audio editor threw it into a Pro Tool session, for example, and they can actually, give a mix to your track, maybe how they need it. It depends how open you want to be with, giving your music away too, right? Like, and what the flexibility. Well, it depends, because we often ask for stems. But it depends, like depends how open you are with having your music adjusted. If you're not, then just send an instrumental. But if they ask for stems, I mean, you never know. Like it just gives you more ammo to go up there and sort of, potentially land that sync.
What I generally do when it comes to stems, if it's a band, I typically say to ad agencies or to the supervisors that I'm dealing with that like stems, I usually say, hey, like, if you're hearing something that's sticking out, just let me know and we'll get the producer to tone it down. I have an issue with just handing over stems to ad agencies or to music supervisors because I feel like that is how you intended your song. And if they're going to start messing around with the song, then why are they licensing the song?
That's the audio editor and me talking,
Yeah.
by the way.
Yeah, no, I know it is. I know his background, so I knew where it was coming from. And I'm not against it. I mean, if it's a producer who is, like, doing tracks with the feature artist over top, and I know that, they just did, like, this song because they did it for ads, then that's fine. Then I'll say, okay, well, you're kind of doing these songs for sync, so then I think, have the stems available. But if it's a band that's touring and has these songs released and they're up on Spotify, I wouldn't do it. I just feel like the song could end up not even sounding like your song anymore. The only time I'll put an aside to that is with trailers. Because with trailers, they actually have composers that are going to come in and put strings in and create arcs and do all this stuff and create a 30-second epic song out of your song. It's still going to sound like your song, hopefully, but it's going to be, grander, and the money's usually pretty good. So that it's kind of like, okay, what do I do here? It's a trickier thing. Well, yeah, I guess that's pretty bad, eh? Like, what price? Anyways, no. Yeah. I'm just saying, like, with trailers, it's kind of a thing. You kind of have to be prepared for them to want a composer to come in and kind of do a bit of messing around. Yeah. So
it really depends how attached you are to your piece of music, really, is what it comes down to. Yeah, good question, though.
That's what you were wondering? Okay. Yeah, Troy?
So in regards to that, then, if you just sign an agreement limiting them to what they could change on the stem,
well, if they don't even have access to your stems, it's not even really considered, right? So if we can't manipulate something that we don't have. I mean, an instrumental version, that's still your track, and there's not much change that's happening there. It's you're just basically taking out the vocals. So either a dialogue in a certain scene can come about, or they could just tuck it lower in the mix of the actual show, not like mixing of your track, but like mixing of your show. But yeah, if they don't have your stems, they can't do really anything with it. If they're going to take it and transpose it and remix it to a totally different song, that's a whole different conversation. But if they don't have your stems, they can't.
Well, like, because you were saying some people ask for stems.
Some people do, yeah.
So if they do ask for stems, and then if that situation, could you say, okay, well, here's my stems, but this is what I limit you to adjusting it to? Like, is that something that you'd be...
I mean, you can try, but I don't know if they would do it. I have no idea. I've never been in a situation where handing stems over was approved. So,
if you see the amount of options that they give back to their client too, they're just such like subtle tweaks. So having the band being able to go in and like what's the limit, right? Like, it just... If you're going to give them the stems, it's sort of implied that they're going to be able to manipulate it how they need it. And then a better way to do it is to go back to them and say, sure, you can do what you want, but I want final approval on how it sounds in the end. That's a safer way of doing it as opposed to limiting the creative. Because really, like, it is a very creative process. There's numerous different ways that they could take it. And maybe in the end, you'll probably be like, hey, that's a cool interpretation of a track. I didn't even know I could take it that way. And, you know, you might come out with something cool.
Cool. Do you still have a question? Yeah.
Just one step closer, from stems, like, do you guys work with mixes or masters in general? Like, do you want both? Does it also depend?
Well, yeah, like the songs that we take, like in terms of like demos to completed versions. Is that what you mean? Or
You're like, say, like, I have a record, I just finished it, it hasn't been mastered yet.
oh,
You know, like,
yeah,
It depends.
depends. For me personally, I don't like receiving tracks that aren't finished, and simply because I archive everything, and then if you start having the same song, but you start losing track of where it is in the mix and mastering process, it's very possible you can end up pitching the wrong one, and that's the one that they want to use, and that's not the one that you've put out into the world and on your record, so that's not good for you. For me, I don't like getting them, and to be honest, I listen to them and then I delete them if they're not final. And if the artist is going to say, I'm sending them to you, but here, I just wanted for you to have it. Personally, I have way too much on my drives. I listen and I just get rid of it.
I'm a little different. It depends on the relationship. If it's a co-pub, then I'm getting mixes like early. I'm getting like the rough mixes and rough vocals and 5 million folders with 5 million versions because I'm part of the creative process. So I'm giving feedback on lyrics, on production sometimes, mostly on lyrics. And so, yeah, I like to be part of that. But for pitching, most of the time it's mastered. They don't bother getting mastered because there was a co-write and they finished it, but they're like, why are we going to master this? Like, it's not going anywhere. It's just for sync. And no one ever notices. Like, no one. Yeah. I mean, some TV shows don't even ask for WAV files. It's cuckoo bananas, but they don't even, like, some, not all.
Cuckoo bananas.
Cuckoo bananas. Sorry, I have 3 kids. So, anyways, yeah, the people don't notice it because especially with TV, everything is squashed, like it's like a block of cheese, right? So it's not really a big deal.
Yeah, and I think for you guys, it's always in your best interest to put the best sounding track forward, especially if it's like a relationship that's new with a sync agent or a label or anything. If you're on a label deal, it's a little bit different, but just putting your best foot forward is, always the best way to go.
Here we have another question here.
Hi. So for yourselves and then also music supervisors, you talked about sending you an email. Do you prefer, like, are we talking, you want a link in the email? Do you want a song? And if it's a link, what platform do people prefer? Like SoundCloud, something else?
Spotify. If you're on Spotify, if you're not and you have a private SoundCloud link, then that's perfect. No attachments. Now I just delete them. If you send me an attachment, I just delete. I used to be nicer. But I've done a lot of these, and I've gotten, like I've said, okay, guys, I'm going to delete it if there's an attachment. And then I email them, you attached a song. And then they send me like 3 more attachments. So I just stopped. I just delete it now. So Spotify, SoundCloud.
Yeah, I think everyone receives files a little different. For me, I like having a download link so I can actually have the file. Because when you're sending it along to anybody, they're going to need to put it in a Pro Tools system or a Logic system to be able to put it against the picture.
Well, for supervisors, yeah. But if for these guys just sending music to us.
I still like download
Yeah?
things. I don't
because I don't have room. I don't have room to download it all.
I'll download it, and if it doesn't work, I either get rid of it or, I mean, download, stream links are always good. Spotify's good too. I don't know. For me, I don't know. I like having the file.
So maybe a couple options, like a SoundCloud link, and then or Box. Yeah.
WeTransfer, I prefer.
Cool.
Yeah, that's the one I like. Yeah, WeTransfer.
Everyone wants something different.
I don't know. Because Box.com you can download and stream. So why?
It's all subjective.
But you're hilarious.
I know. That's the way I do it.
WeTransfer. It's $19.99.
It was. Hey man, they've been doing better. It's just the way I've been receiving music. I don't know.
So maybe
I'm a creature of habit. What do you want?
Finding something, if you're pitching somebody who doesn't you don't know how they prefer it, or you don't, then maybe just send them something where you can both stream and download.
Stream and download is better.
Yeah. Okay.
Everyone's going to be different, clearly.
Yeah. We have another question over here.
Oh my God! Please don't.
There you go.
Man, it can be all over the place, and I don't know about disclosing money stuff, but it can be as low as like $50 or free. Some people have done free.
Yeah, sometimes it's free. I mean, there's step deals you can get too. Like, if there's a few just recently, like there's if an independent film doesn't have a distributor, you can get something at a very low fee, and then depending on the sales of this. Of the movie, once the distributor comes on board, once they've hit a certain revenue threshold, then songs that are used in the movie get an additional fee. So say if there's like $100,000 in revenue, I don't know, I'm just making up numbers, $100,000 in revenue for a certain film, more money comes back to the artist. Then you hit $200,000, there's more money that comes back for the artist. For ads, I mean, it really depends. It's depends on where it's being played. What
and it's
medium
lower
going
now
on.
than it used to be.
It's lower. It is. I mean, it's. But every now and again, you still get you still get these really, ones that are to get excited about, and if they're paying money, there's rights that they're going to want. So either be it exclusivity or world, or maybe it's an ad that they want to run for a year. Maybe it's like a Super Bowl spot. Like, it really depends on the situation and when and where it's getting played. And television can be, it's kind
all over the place.
Yeah, it's definitely all over the place. You could probably speak more to that.
I mean, it really depends on the. It's hard. I don't know. It depends on everything, on the budget for the show, on how new it is, on who the supervisor is that's working on it, on the showrunners, on it all. Like, it's so all over the place. You really can't get definitive. I mean, for indie artists, under six figures probably for the most part, even for ads nowadays. And then the sky's the limit for any of the bigger guys. But it's not consistent, like I said. So it's hard. Everything's gray in this business. There are no black and white answers. I mean, there really isn't. That's why we stumble sometimes on some of the answers for these things, because we're like, I don't know.
Well, yeah, and you got to think too, like of I keep going back to advertising, but you got to think of their client and what their marketing spend is. I'm using examples I'm pulling from the air, but Nike's marketing budget is going to be far different than McDonald's marketing budget, and they're going to have different targets and they're going to have different goals. But I mean, for an ad, you can be. It's hard to say. I mean,
you're stumbling too.
Because you don't want to give a number that's like it could go anywhere from like 5 to 10K, which is like pretty low, to like who knows, like you can get up to like 50, 60, 70, 80. But it depends. It really depends, and it's very situational on if your song is working very well, how bad they want it, and just if it's what type of spot it is too, and like what the reach is of the spot, and basically the rights in terms of is it exclusive or not, is it worldwide or not, just really depends.
So is it mostly back end that you expect?
No, that doesn't. Well, for advertising in Canada, you don't get it, but in television you do.
But it's minimal.
Yeah,
it's not much.
It's the upfront.
Except for MTV, you get an MTV spot, and because it's in such high rotation, you get pretty good checks for that.
Yeah.
But most part, this whole thing, I love it when I hear, the back, you're gonna fee, but the back end's gonna be great.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I have collected $50 in 2 years. Thanks. That was great back end. So it's part of that is not knowing, because they don't see the numbers. I see the numbers, so it's a different perspective.
That's a good perspective from a publisher too. Yeah, I mean the upfront fees are really what you're going to want to get excited about. Yeah, the back end, well, like you mentioned, ads. It's not there in Canada. It just doesn't exist.
You get it in the U.S. though.
You get it in the U.S. Yeah, if you get a U.S. placement, yeah, I'm assuming it'd be pretty good.
Are there any other questions? Yeah.
Out of curiosity, over the last couple of years, I've noticed in a lot of television shows that I've watched that they're using really well-known songs, but they're using covers of other people. Is that a trend? Is that cheaper?
Well,
what is the reason for that?
I don't know if it's cheaper.
It's not. I don't. Well, maybe it is. Yeah, because it won't be MFN.
Yeah, well, that's true. But a lot of the times, and you could speak to this, but I've dealt with it where if you're doing a cover of a song and you're going to go clear the publishing, then the publisher will just ask for more money than they normally would. And then the person who's actually recording the song and doing the cover is getting the shorter end of the stick. Yeah, maybe you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah.
Better. Yeah, I don't know. It is a trend. Supervisors do like seeing it.
Trailer companies like them too. They like reimagined songs. They don't want straight covers. They want reimagined covers, right? Like, I love it when I'd say to my can you do a really cool cover of X song? And they come back and it sounds exactly like the original song. I'm like, what are you doing? No.
Yeah, different spins on songs are always great. And it's like, it's engaging to their audience because it's a song that you already know. So if you think of it from their perspective in terms of a marketer's way, then they want to be able to engage with their fan base with music that they know. But then it's like, the best is always when you hear a song like that in a film or a TV show and you're like, I know this, but what is this? I don't know this. Do I know this? And then the hook comes in and then, edits. Whatever, it's Imagine by John Lennon or whoever it is.
Yeah.
But, it's a trend. Supervisors like hearing them. Sync agents like hearing them. So if you have them,
My favorite one is the one for Maleficent, and that was the Disney song.
Mm-hmm.
That one was my favorite. It's so dark and creepy. It's the best.
Yeah, I do remember hearing one time, when we were in LA, and
Was that last November?
last January.
Yeah, okay.
And I heard one place that we were at saying that sending covers is good, but on your side, as the person who's performing it, you don't own the rights to that song.
Well, you'll have the master recording rights. We actually have a song.
The master, but you would have, but you'd have to clear with the publisher first,
well,
right?
No, because you can just get a mechanical license.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you
And
get the
in
mechanical
Canada-
license.
Yeah, and in Canada, which I just found this out, people, it's like new.
Okay, everyone get out your notes.
So I didn't know this, but for digital release, like a digital only release, in Canada you don't have to get a mechanical license.
Mm-hmm.
You the Spotify and iTunes and all that, they already have a blanket license, so they'll clear it no problem. The U.S. a mechanical license from them, but they'll give it to you. It's like I just had to do 3, and it's not like I got turned down or anything. But other territories, the major markets, you don't have to get that.
Yeah.
So it was that was kind of interesting because I don't really like when I was at Red Brick, I was just doing sync and creative. I had never done mechanical licenses, so I had to like call a bunch of people, and a lot of people didn't know what I was talking about, and even some Americans were like, "No, you don't have to get a digital license." Well, that would be great because we released like 3 covers, and we could get takedown.
Definitely do in the U.S.
You definitely do in the U.S. because their copyright laws are a little different.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah. So
Interesting.
now you know.
Yeah.
Exciting
That's good.
stuff.
Did any? Okay, give me 1 sec. I need to send. It's just for the streaming purposes, so that people can hear, so that people can hear what the questions are. So there's a context.
What's a mechanical license?
Good question. That's awesome.
So mechanical license is for the sound recording. So if you're doing a cover and you're releasing, one stream is a mechanical. So there you go. And you can also look it up, CMRA. That's our mechanical licensing company here.
Are there any other questions while I'm in the middle of the room here?
Oh, one up front.
Anyone? Front. Heather.
I think I know the answer to this question, but going back to instrumentals, that's like without the melody, or is it with?
Oh no, with the melody. No, it's just without the vocal.
Right. So would you like, for example, or not for example, but would you like make another track that has the vocal melody, or you just cut?
You just mute the vocal.
Yeah,
so it's just like the backing tracks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
That's what I thought.
Okay, anyone else? I think we covered everything. Are you sure? This is a weird world.
Well, I think we'll be networking around after too. If there's
totally.
questions that you just feel like asking in private, that's fine.
Totally, yes. Feel free to stay. We have snacks at the back and coffee if you're really tired. And thank you all for coming out and taking the time to learn today. And huge thanks. Amy and Rich both flew out from Toronto today and leaving tomorrow. So it's a very quick trip and a long way for them to come to teach all of you here. So give it up for them.
And thank you to Manitoba Music for having us out.
Thank you so much for having us out.
Yeah.
Our pleasure. All right.
Thanks.
Everyone have fun.